Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Simon with the Chabad House of Dalmar, and today we're going to talk about a beautiful book that just came out to perfect the world and the Lubavitcher Rebbe's call to teach the Noahide Code to all mankind. Now, the idea is that, of course, this is the Jewish view, and I'm a rabbi, and you would think, well, I'm therefore addressing myself to only Jewish people. But that's a misconception, and that's why we're here talking, because Jewish people, and maybe some people say the rabbis only care about their own people, there's enough to take care of, which there surely is, but that's not enough. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe always emphasized and pushed people to do more, never be satisfied, and to extend their goals to bigger and beyond. A lot of people just care about their congregation, their community, their friends, and that's enough really to keep people busy. But the Rebbe said really you have to look at the Torah, which we're going to be looking at. I'm going to read a few excerpts, that we have to really care about all mankind, not just the Jewish people. And that's very important. And when we're going to be talking about that, to introduce the idea that mankind is called Noah. Noah was, people know Noah in the flood, and really we'll talk about Adam also. Adam was the first and only person on the world. Then there was Eve. It's not like, again, I know that's not exactly what you'll read in the history and the science books, but that's a Torah view. There was one person, so obviously all humanity is one great-great-great-great-granddaddy and great-great-great-grandmommy, Adam and Eve, but still, people know the basic story of Noah, not to get into here. People were bad, the flood happened, all mankind was destroyed except for Noah and his wives, meaning and his kids, which are his descendants. So in a certain sense, even though yes, we all come from Adam, on the other hand, we all come from Noah, and that means all mankind. And we're going to talk about also, just to be nice and do a favor, which is also an incredible thing, but there are specific obligations of all humanity, different than Jewish people, and Jewish people have to see that humanity does the right thing. So even though people are generally good, they need to be tuned up also, because people aren't perfect, and there's a lot of, we're going to say, ills with people and society that can be directly helped by keeping the Noahide laws that the Almighty has given to the non-Jewish people through the Jewish people. So let's just even get the basic Judaism part of it. I'll read this one paragraph. This is from the Rambam, the book of mitzvahs of commandments, and it says, "And you shall love the Lord your God." This is, for Jewish people are familiar, we say this is from Deuteronomy Devorim, but it's in the Shema Yisrael. Our sages said that the commandments also include calling upon all people to serve God, exalted be He, and have faith in Him. Meaning that you could say, well, Judaism for Jews and the Gentiles could do whatever they want, but that is not true, and that's not what the Maimonides says, that they have to at least have a basic belief in the one God. For just as when you love someone you will praise and extol him and call upon others to love him, so by analogy when you truly love God through grasping his truth, you will undoubtedly call others to the true knowledge which you have already grasped. So that's very, very important, that if you love someone and they really want something, again, I don't know if you're maybe in a simple example, it's not a deep example, your wife loves roses, then you're going to, you love your wife, you're going to bring her roses. It's the same idea, and obviously in a very, very deeper sense, that, God wants a perfect world. He's not just about Israel. He's not just caring about the Jewish people. He cares about all humanity, and he wants to see them live good, perfect lives. And ultimately, we know that that's the only way to do that is through the Torah ways of that God instructed us. He made us. He knows what we're made of. And, everybody's looking for happiness, and everybody has a better idea, or they think they have a better idea how to make the world at peace. And we'll get into that but ultimately we have to look at the Torah, which is from God, that He's the one who knows how to make the world. And the Sifri, which is a medrash to homiletic, and you shall love the God, you shall make him beloved of mankind as Avram, Abraham your father did, as he says, and the souls that they made in Haran, meaning that who's the first Jewish person? It was Abraham. He calls in Hebrew Avraham, but in English they call him Abraham. And what did he do? Well, he was the first Jew, so did he only care? Well, I only care about my family because they're the only Jewish people around. You have a whole world. Who knows what the population was 4,000 years ago, thousands, 100,000s. Well, I only care about my family. No, that is again not true, that he was very interested in, again, perfecting all mankind, helping them. A lot of times it was in a spiritual sense, religion. People bow down to these ridiculous idols. And he says, no, that is not your God. That is not the proper God in the world. That's not the true God. There's only one God in the world. And number two, though, help them out to help other people. And that's many of the laws, and we'll get into that also, exactly what they have to do. There's many laws, really, and it's more complicated than our TV show a lot, but there are many things of just being a good human being that the Torah is incumbent upon us. Be good out to our neighbors, helping people out, giving charity. But of course, there is theological ideas also that we're supposed to just tell people that there's one God. Ultimately, tune in to true reality. Now, this is another excerpt from the Rambam, again Maimonides, but this is from the Maimonides, very, very, very briefly, codified all Jewish law. And at the end of this tremendous volumes of law, you can imagine, he wrote the laws of kings, of just saying ultimately how the world should be run. Moses was commanded by the Almighty to compel all the inhabitants of the world to accept the commandments given to Noah's descendants. This is very important. This is not just philosophy. We have to understand that this is Jewish law. We'll talk about it, why it's so emphasized nowadays. But the bottom line, it is a Maimonides. He's the basic codifier of Jewish law. Everybody holds by him, and he is basic Judaism, and this is what he says. Anyone who accepts upon himself the fulfillment of these 7 commandments and is precise in their observance is considered one of the, and quote, the pious amongst the Gentiles, and will merit a share in the world to come. Again, it's out of the scope of this show, but compare and contrast other religions, how they consider other people, and you will see that it's not a very nice attitude. And here, how do Jewish people view other people in the world? And you'll see that, right here, we just have this quote, pious amongst the Gentiles, they get to be the world to come. They do not have to be Jewish. They have to keep their 7 commandments, which are, do not kill, do not steal, do not commit any sexual wrongs or sins, that they have to not have idols, which means worship one God, not to blaspheme God, the main idea not to eat from a limb from a live animal. It's the only kosher law that they have to keep. But in one of the very, very general rules, which is the 7th, is that they have to set up a court system, a law system, a justice system. But it's very, very general because there's so many laws. Everybody knows, even here we are in the state capital in Albany, but there's so many laws that are even produced every year, let alone how many laws on the books. But it's incumbent upon every person to keep those laws of general humanity, so that there should be a normal world. You have to have laws. This applies only when he accepts them and fulfills them, because the Holy One, blessed be he, commanded them in the Torah, informed us through Moshe, or Moses, our teacher, that Noah's descendants had been commanded to fulfill them previously, that it's not just a nice idea. A person says, well, I'd like to give charity. It's, that's my way of doing things. But on the other hand, they have to, what he's telling us here, that he has to fulfill the laws because of God. They commanded Moses through the Torah, and that is why every person in humanity has to keep the laws. I wanted to continue on that we mentioned a little bit before about Abraham, or Avram in Hebrew, and he kept all the laws of the Torah, and he was just a great, first Jew and perfect Jew. And what did he do with himself besides keeping the commandments? He actually was helping mankind. And here's another, again, an excerpt which is very important. We just mentioned it, but now I want to explain it. Speaking of Avram and Sarah, his wife, the Torah refers to souls. Now get this quote. It's from Bereshis, which is the Genesis. The souls they made in Haran, in the city of Haran. What do you mean you made a soul? What does that really mean? So that's your question. Rashi explains that they are said to have made the soul, for they took them under the wings of divine presence. Abraham would convert the men, and Sarah would convert the women. And that's considered as if they made them. I mean, of course, they didn't biologically make them, but spiritually they made them into a person. Sometimes you say in English, you made my day. What do you mean, made my day? Your day is a day, whether the person made it or not. But you made it fulfilling your day. So it's also the same thing when he made people in Haran. He made them into true, good human beings. And Sarah worked with the women, and women, of course, and that's, again, another show about how women are equal, if not, if anything, superior to the men. And that's important that they would make them good people also. So that a Jewish person becomes a father to a nation. Every single Jew is endowed with the quality that God said to Avram, I placed you as father of the multitude of nations. Again, this is from Bereshis. What do you mean you're a father of the nations? You have to analyze, you have to think of what this means. It's a nice statement, of course, but the Jew's role is to actualize these potentials. That every Jewish person is like a father. We're not talking about biological fathers. We are talking about spiritual people. That it actually says even in Judaism that if you're raised an orphan, it's as if you gave birth to them. You made them, you nurtured them, you made them into, in Yiddish you would say, into a mensch, into a person. So that's what we're talking about. We're going to talk about in a second, in a few minutes, we're talking about the ills of this country of human beings and how this Judaic idea of how people should live without, again, making them Jewish, but just living in a normal, good life is so important and solve many of the ills that face people and society today. So that's an important idea. And it's an interesting story. Bring in a story where a lot of philosophy and theology now, so it's a true story. It's not just a made-up story. That Abraham wanted to teach his father. Now his father was an idol maker. It was a good business. Made some statues and he would sell them. It's a good business. But Abraham knew this was ridiculous. Idols are not, they're not God. They're made out of stone. So how does he teach his father a lesson? His father had to go out for a day. Abraham, you're my son, you mind the store. So what Abraham did was he knocked off the heads and chopped off the arms of all these idols and put the axe or the jackhammer, whatever he had there, sledgehammer, in the hand of the biggest idol. His father comes home, what kind of business, what happened today, and he sees all his idols are smashed. And Abraham, what happened? I put you in charge here. What kind of business is this? What happened? So he says, well, you know what really happened? There was a big argument between the idols, and they had a fight, and it led to a big fight between them. And then ultimately this biggest idol you see there, he's the biggest and toughest, and he took that sledgehammer and he knocked everybody's block off and he knocked them pieces. And father said, yes, the biggest ridiculous story I ever heard. These statues are made out of stone and wood. How could they go beating up anybody and swinging a hammer at anybody? They're nothing. So Abraham says, that's my lesson to you. He says, of course, that an idol can't do anything for himself, But then how can he do anything to help you? He doesn't have the power of anything. So Abraham actually got in big trouble because of this. I mean, imagine, again, you're thousands of years old, and now there's a freedom of religion. Thank God we live in the United States. You can believe what you want. You call idols nonsense, which of course they are. But then it was an absolute dictatorship. It was run by Nimrod. His father actually turned in Abraham into the government. They said, say in Yiddish, a chutzpah, an audacity. You knock down idols. They're holy to us. And we're going to give you a chance. Either you bow down to the idol and all right, you rectify the situation, or we're going to throw you into a burning fire. So Abraham says, I'm not bowing down to no idol. You'll have to kill me, but I'm not doing it. And he says, all right, that's what your choice is. We're going to do that. And they threw Abraham into a fiery furnace. Miracles of miracles. He's walking around, and it would burn anybody to a crisp in a few seconds. But he's walking around in the fire, and then obviously everybody saw it was a miracle, and they said, bring him out. This is incredible. It must be a God himself to be in a fiery furnace, and nothing should happen to him. And he says, believe me, I'm no God. I'm a human being. But what you have to do is believe in the one God, that he's in charge of the world. Looks like a normal world. It is a normal world. You have to work in normal means. On the other hand, that ultimately, if you can see it in many ways by yourself, you could see that God is in charge of the world. Maybe you don't see it every time, sunrise, sunset, and things go on normally. But if you think about it really deeply, that things happen in the world, and that they're tuned to godliness because miracles do happen, phenomena happens, then we just, say, well, we just don't understand. Well, you don't understand, but that's the hand of God. So that's very important. I hope you liked the little story about Abraham. Now I wanted to deal with something which I just mentioned before, and you could ask, why now? We're emphasizing I'm a Chabad rabbi. Teachings, as we said from the beginning, is the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and Rebbe passed away 25 years ago. But on the other hand, that his calls, his words live on, and his call, as we're saying, is to make the world a better place. And there's so much emphasized by the Rebbe in many of his public talks. But then you can ask, well, why now? Judah's been around, like we said, since Abraham for 4,000 years. Why is there such an emphasis on now? Well, there's two major reasons for that. One major reason is like we kind of said it before. I hinted to you that we're in the United States of America. And you could say what you want. Obviously, there's limitations, but you can say that, our religion's the best, and I like to being Jewish, and no one's, Jewish people are first-class citizens, and to normal Americans, well, of course, that's what we live by. But you're dealing with Europe, you're dealing with hundreds, and in the Arabic lands, you're talking about hundreds of years ago. That wasn't true. And really, just what I'm saying right now, obviously there wouldn't be television a few hundred years ago, and there's no media then, but just to make pronouncements that, hey, I want, or not that I want, it's the Judaism and the Maimonides and the Rebbe would want, to make the world better would be, and not to worship idols, would get you into trouble, get me into deep trouble. And thank God we do live in the United States of America. And we could say what we want and better it in our way, all ways. So that's one reason their emphasis now. Beforehand, they just didn't have the opportunity. You don't want to get people in trouble and saying the wrong thing hundreds of years ago. And second of all, that according to the Rebbe, the Messiah is very close to coming, and there will be a perfect world. You can say, all right, I'll take it. What's wrong with me having a perfect world? I'll sit back in my chair and just do nothing and let the Messiah come and perfect the world. I'm for it. I'll give him my vote. I'm all for it. But of course, that's not what Judaism wants. You don't sit back and do nothing. If you want to do better the world, and the right the Messiah will be able to do it, we have to do our part. Many times, I think it's an important point to ponder on, because many people stop me, and a lot of people don't like how the government's run the United States, the world's a mess. what should we do? And I says, you don't have the power to change the whole world. You do have the power to change yourself in your own personal way. And like we said, a little charity. Again, you're not a millionaire and a billionaire to make major institutions, but you have a few dollars in your pocket and you could help somebody else out. It may be small, it doesn't seem like it has world reverberations, but on the other hand, the little you do does have, in a spiritual way, reverberations. Example that would give is like you throw a little pebble into a pond. With a little pebble, there's a whole big pond, and you have one little rock, a little pebble. What a difference going to make to anything? But if you throw the pebble in the middle of the pond, the waves, small waves, but it will reverberate the waves throughout the entire pond. And that's the way we have to think. We're maybe pebbles, we don't have millions of dollars, and we can't do an incredible amount of things, but you are a pebble and you can do certain things with your money and your influence. And then what you do is that's important. And it's very important because it will have ramifications and inspiration for other people also. So again, the point is that we're close to the Messianic era, and since that the Rebbe sees that and knows that, and everybody, Jewish person, is supposed to believe that every day, that's what Maimonides says, that we have to do our part. And again, just don't get shy and saying, I can't do that much. What do you want from my life? That you do something small, or even if you can do something bigger, that'd be great. But whatever you do in your life, then that will affect to another step closer to the Messiah. So that's why the Rebbe emphasized that, because when the Messiah comes, it's not just Jews will be here and only in Israel. Again, we've been saying that the whole time, that it's not a Jewish attitude. There will be the non-Jews. We'll work together in peace. That's the main thing. And the biggest blessing is peace. And then, of course, that's the second idea. We want abundance. People are starving. There's homeless. Obviously, people have problems up and down and all around, really. And those problems will go away when the Messiah comes. So that's why a little bit goes segue into the next idea, which I want to bring out with this book. It's a very interesting book that we want to talk about society as a whole. So again, I'm Jewish View, and of course I have my thousands of viewers, and that people want to be inspired and try to better the world, and that's what we're trying to do here on the Jewish View. But you have to see, it's not just an obligation that, okay, you have to do the right thing. Again, like I was, an obligation. You have to pay your taxes. Well, I don't like paying taxes. Well, you have to pay the taxes because that's the law. So it's all right, I'll do it. But here, you don't understand that we're trying to say is that when you keep these 7 commandments of Ben Noah, of children of Noah, it's not just, okay, an obligation. You're saying that's what God wants. Okay, I'll do it. But it's the best benefit for yourself, that you'll make yourself happy and good and fulfilled in your lifetime. And that is also, that there's so many ills in the world. Like I say, one of the biggest dangers or the death factors of young people is suicide. So if you have a disease, there's doctors and there's researching, and it's good to help them out to find an end to the disease. But what's wrong when someone has suicide? They're so depressed they don't want to go on. Well, here's something fulfillment. Here, don't you see that it's doing God's will, making the world better, going out and helping people. That's going to make the world a better place. Fine. But what we're saying right now is that it helps yourself also, or people Tell them to work with other people. There's disadvantaged people all around, and there's handicapped, and there's lonely people, there's kids that are in trouble, and this is the way to help them out. But it also, even maybe more important, it helps yourself out. That's important. And then I know people in a bigger society, there's so much crime going on, and people are bemoaning to me about the United States. Where are we headed towards? Is there peace in the world? There's so much terrorism going on. There really is a lot of troubles. A lot of good things happening, but a lot of troubles. And then there would be the answer is right here again, the same answers. You have to teach these people. I mean, I do one of my 10 jobs I always say is to go into prisons, and I teach them, well, why are you selling drugs, and why are you hurting people and getting into fights or whatever, and obviously ending up in prison. But why don't you keep the 7 mitzvahs of Noahide? Be good to other people. Believe in a God. There's a God above. The Rebbe once said that criminals, they don't believe in God. So what they do is just saying, hey, can I get away with this from, is the policeman looking at me? I can get away with it. I think I could sneak it out. Well, maybe you can get away with it. Obviously, there's enough people in prison that didn't get away with it. But people do commit crimes that way. But wait a minute. What if you believe that there's a God above that sees and hears all and knows exactly what you're doing, and you will not be able to get away from God? You can get away from a policeman, maybe. You can get away from society, but you're not getting away from God. And if you instill that fear in their heart, how much crime will be dismissed because of that? So I think that's a really important point, even though I said maybe we're little pebbles, and obviously how much can we do, but just to emphasize these ideas to non-Jews, again, not only it benefits society, benefits themselves, but ultimately it benefits ourselves. If there's a better society and there's not crime and there's no terrorism and people are acting, quote unquote, we would say normal, they believe in God, they believe in the Torah, they believe Moses gave the Torah to the Jewish people, and the Jewish people in turn are teaching other people what to do in the proper way, that's super, super duper important. So I think just to sum up, I think there's a very important ideas that we're bringing out. It's a brand new book, and obviously there's a lot more than I said in a half hour, just bringing out a few tidbits of it, the general ideas. But it's called To Perfect the World. And we talked about, again, to sum up, the Jewish people received the Torah through Moses, and in turn every non-Jew should acknowledge that the Torah was given to the Jewish people through Moses, and to fulfill their 7 mitzvahs. The Jewish people have to do 613 commandments. It's not that big of an obligation for the non-Jews to do 7. I mean, even every little bit counts. Many good people, again, the belief in God and the not to kill, not to steal, to be proper people, not commit false or wrong sexual acts. That's very, very important in our society, to have a good family life, to raise good children, to believe in God. And ultimately that has reverberation throughout society and help that there won't be any crime and we can live with peace with each other. The United States was made for different people to live together. That idea should also be continued throughout the entire world, that there should be peace, and ultimately, like we said, that should be the forerunner to the Messianic era. Thank you very much.